And I just turned around and I hauled ass out of there. I was done. I wasn't dealing with that.
The hypocrisy of the cult is one of the things that turned me away the quickest.
When I turned my headlights on, it turned and looked at us. And one of the things I remember the most were the eyes were glowing red.
I see an orb of light. It is just circling these steps like it is waiting for me.
And he begins to tell them that he saw a UFO. They're basically like, what are you talking about? That's 7 foot up on a tree, peeking around it, and that's where I saw the top of the muzzle, nose, and the eyes. As soon as I made eye contact with this thing, it felt like death.
Welcome back to Tinfoil Tales. Tonight we are joined by my guest, Lee. Would you like to let the audience know a little bit about yourself before we dive into it?
Man, I'm just a simple guy, really, how this all started for me. I'm just a construction worker, right? And been doing construction, working for the same company for 31 years. And, I grew up as a Catholic, even went to Catholic high school and all of that. And I never really believed in UFOs or aliens or that sort of thing. Even though my family had a couple of experiences, I really wasn't that old or drawn to that sort of thing. But I'm dyslexic, but still I'm really good with numbers, believe it or not. And that's basically me. I don't know what else I can tell you about myself other than I've had these experiences that turned up later in life. And actually, once we went through regression and that sort of thing, then I found out about stuff that happened earlier in my life, and the puzzle pieces started to fit in. And so that's how it all began for me.
Well, if you'd like to dive on into it, I guess we can jump on in.
Okay, so what happened for me is I lived in a home in what's called Normandy Park here in Washington State. And it's not very far away from SeaTac Airport. And down at my house, you can see across the bay, you can even see Maury Island, if anybody's heard of the Maury Island incident. It's kind of pivotal and key for the story, or not for the story, but it's in the same location pretty much where this activity happened. Not only that, over to the left or further just south is where, the UFOs were seen, flying between Mount Rainier and Mount Adams. And that was, I don't even have the dates. I don't even have the dates in front of me right now, but those were some of the first UFOs seen way back in the 1950s, early 50s, I believe. And that area right there has always been kind of a hotbed of activity. And so here I move into this house that I inherited from my grandparents. And I did a bunch of remodeling in the house and that sort of thing. And downstairs, as we took up this big room downstairs as our bedroom, it was the old theater room. So it's really long, not so much narrow, just really kind of long, maybe, 30 feet almost long by, I would say, 15 feet wide. So it's a big, long room. And down in one area, it has no closets in it at the time. So I put in these armoires against the wall, going across one wall and then down kind of the other. And I also put in a set of French doors in this room. And the French doors went out to the lower deck. And one night I woke up because it was freezing cold in the room. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And the French doors are wide open. Okay. And there's no reason for them to be. They get locked, right? it's not like we were having wind that night or anything like that. When you throw that bolt on those French doors, the pin goes vertical and goes up and then down, to lock it into place. So there's no way that those doors can just be blown open. But yet here I was like 3:00 in the morning, freezing, and those doors were wide open. That kind of freaked me out a little bit. In fact, I even had a word with the gardener. I said, "Hey, what the heck? Did you leave the doors open? Were you doing something? What, kind of getting upset at him about it." And he's like, "Man, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't mess with those doors." So I just then chalked it up to just whatever, whatever. So I'm not dealing with it or thinking about it. I just let it go. Well, about 2 nights later, this thing happened. Okay. And what it was is I woke up and I was not in my bed. I was laying face down on what I could only tell was a table at the time. Right. And I'm looking at my body on this table, but I'm also able to see through my own eyes at the floor, which was completely bizarre. And I'm freaking out. What kind of, messed up dream? I don't know what's going on, but it's like a horrible nightmare or something, right? But I could see this light like cascading down over my body in this cone fashion, over my body, over this table, and onto the floor. And I see what looks like an apparatus coming down from the ceiling towards my body. And this apparatus looked like something from Superman, right? With all the little compartment things, like when he went to the ice castle and threw the stone or the crystal,
Yeah.
and all these things started coming up. Well, it was reversed, like it was coming down, it was reversed to that, and it was coming down towards my body. And I was just freaking out because I could see this happening and I knew it. Like my body knew it, and I'm trying to move. I could not move. I could not scream. I could garble a little bit, and I could see like the streams of just not snot so much, just drool, just a lot of drool coming out of my mouth. And I was so freaked out by seeing this thing coming because it scared the heck out of me. I don't know what I'm looking at, and I can't move. It was like I was totally paralyzed. And I'm trying to, make noise and scream, but all I'm getting is just this garbled mess and these streams of, just all this stuff coming out of my mouth, just freaking out. And then on the lowest tube, this needle pops down and starts going lower and lower. And this apparatus is still coming down, but this one needle-like thing from the lowest tube keeps coming down a little bit faster. And then I can't describe the pain as it popped into the back of my neck, right at the base of my neck. And it felt like it popped through my skin and then into my spine. And I completely lost it. I was just in agony at that time. And in about like 1 second later, it was like the hand of God had just grabbed me and held me. And it was the most incredible, loving feeling I have ever felt or could ever feel in my body. The only way that I could think about this is saying you would have had to be out of your body to feel this, because our bodies, our souls cannot, maybe our souls, but our bodies cannot hold that kind of love. It was immense, all encompassing. And it was like, holy crud. And then I woke up in my bed and my neck hurt so bad. So I'm reaching back behind my between my pillow and my neck, and I'm feeling this crusty and wet stuff. And I'm like, what the heck is this? Right? This really happened. It wasn't a dream. I am freaking out. And so I woke up my wife at the time. I said, hey, you need to look at this right now. So I showed it to her, and she says, it looks like you got some sort of a strange spider bite or something right there, because it's all red and everything. And I'm like, no, that was no spider bite. And I don't know how to describe what happened to me, but I told her the best that I could. And I'm just freaking out. And I'm like, this just really happened to me. And, going to work that day, I couldn't get it out of my mind. And I like, maybe it was just crazy dream, trying to tell myself, trying to rationalize what had happened to me and trying to, cope with it. And I just couldn't, and there was another guy at work that kind of believed in this sort of thing and Bigfoot and that sort of stuff. So I was talking with him about it and he's like, yeah, okay, whatever, and kind of listening to me, but there's work to do. So you got to get to work. And so, the whole day I was just thinking about it. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And the next day it was a little bit less, but still thinking about it. And I'm having a hard time sleeping, the nights after this had all happened. And I'm still trying to figure out what the heck. Started looking online for other people, or groups of people I can get in touch with. And, days and months went by, and I'm still having kind of like these flashbacks and these nightmare dreams about all this stuff that happened to me, or this thing that had happened to me. And finally, I got a hold of a group. Now, this group is called SUFON from Seattle, Washington here. And I figured, well, I'll talk to these people, and see what they think or whatever. And so I was talking with them and they say, hey, you need to get a hold of this other group, this abduction group. And I'm like, what? There's an abduction group? Well, then I had to go ahead and meet up with them on their next meeting. And I was telling them all of this stuff. And I'm like, hoping to God, crossing my fingers that they're going to tell me, no, that's not how abductions happen. You've lost it. You don't know what you're talking about. That's not what happened. That's what I was hoping for them to tell me. And they did not tell me that. They said, listen, what you've been through is similar to what other people have been through. And I'm shaking. I'm freaking out. Like, no, I was just hoping this was some kind of crazy dream or whatever. And they're saying, no, you need to get in contact with this lady here. And they gave me her card. And her name was Dr. Janet Coley. And she's out of Seattle, Washington, and Bainbridge. She's got a house over there as well. And so I contacted her and set up a meeting with her. It was like 2 weeks later. But in the meantime, I am stressing out, man. It was like once they told me that, it was like everything that I had been taught up to that point was like a lie, being a good Catholic and all of that stuff. I just felt like this stuff isn't supposed to be real. This stuff is not supposed to exist, right? And if it does, it's it's the devil. It's all of that sort of thing. And I'm trying to come to grips with it, and I'm starting to think some very dark thoughts around this and how it happened to me and what happened. And so I went and saw Dr. Janet Coley, and she, starts this process with me called EMDR. And it's not like a typical regression. They use eye movement. And what she does is she'll hold her finger up there and she'll say, now watch my finger. And she takes it back and forth. And so your eyes are going from the left, the left to the right, which is supposed to activate both hemispheres of your brain. In fact, this is what they do for people that, have PTSD from, being in conflict and that sort of stuff in war. It helps them, integrate all of that stuff into their lives. And so she started doing this with me, and she goes, okay, now I want you to close your eyes and think back to when you were in your room before all of this happened. And I started to do that. And I said, okay, so I'm there in my room. I'm looking at my armoire, at the far end of the room right now. And there seems to be this amorphous blob in the corner over by that armoire, in front of the armoire. And I, it's kind of this brown, and it's kind of got a shimmery look to it. And it's just like undulating like water, but it's on a vertical plane, it's vertical up and down. And it's just undulating and moving like ripples on the water. And I'm like, what the heck is this? And so then I stop for a minute, and she takes me back in, and she does the thing with the finger, and looking back and forth at her finger. And I'm going, okay, now she says, close your eyes again and tell me what you see now. And she did that several times during this. And as far as I got for that first session was just seeing this hand come through this amorphous blob, like this hand that had 4 fingers on it. And once I saw that, I hopped up out of that seat and I said, I'm done. I can't go. I can't go any further right now, So that actually ended the session between her and I the first time. And so I did make another appointment with her, and I realized that I needed to go through this. So I went back and saw her the second time. And that's when the darn thing came through the amorphous blob, poked its head out. And once again, as soon as that head popped out of the blob, I just jumped up out of my seat, and she got me to calm down. And, she took me through this whole thing with what had happened to me. They came in, there was 3 of them that came into the room. One was at like the foot of the bed, one was halfway next to the bed, and the other one was right next to me. And they get me up out of bed, and they somehow float me through the wall next to the bed outside into the yard. And there's this craft above the yard. And it's got this cone of light, and we all kind of go up in this cone of light into the craft. Okay. Once I got on board the craft, I remember, and I will never forget the smell. Strong ammonia smell with vinegar. It made me so sick, I puked on board the craft once I got there. And this is all during the EMDR regression. Okay. So she's got me in there in the craft with these 3 grays, and there's one more once we get on the craft. There's one behind a station where he's got some kind of a board where he's manipulating whatever's on the board. We get in there, and then they take me into this room, and this room, I remember, it has like an oval top to it. And they take me in there, and that's where the table is, and they have me get on the table, and that's when all of that other stuff that happened in my dream happened. Okay. And I had to see part of that again. And then she brought me through it like several times. She brought me through what had happened to me during that session again and again and again, like 3 different times. And then it was time for that session to end. And so I left that session and then came back the following week. And then we revisited that same situation again and again, trying to make it so that I'm able to deal with the trauma that happened. But still, at work, even after the EMDR, the next day, I would see things in my mind's eye. Like, oh yeah, that's the way they walk. I saw myself walking on the sidewalk. Like I was walking on the sidewalk, but I saw my shadow off to the side. And it was like, oh yeah, that's the way they walk. And it was just these different things that started coming up for me during the days after the sessions, like the fact that their eyes are not black like that. The one that was on board, his eyes were actually blue, big blue eyes, and they have like a substance that they can like drop in their eyes, and then they can peel it off like a hard shell or something like that, like it becomes stiff like a lens, right? And they can peel that off later. And so like there was all these different things that started coming up for me, and I'm like, why am I seeing all this other stuff that I don't remember? So I went back to her, back to the therapist, back to Dr. Janet Coley, and she took me she took me back farther, and I started to see other things that had happened in my life prior to this experience, where, this shimmery light would come through the window, and it would bend like you were looking in a prism, and it bent and it would shine on me, and then I would get pulled out through the window via this shimmery light that had this quality to it, you know, and it would kind of like sparkle in that. And so I think there was probably at least 8 other times that she brought me through, and I had these other procedures done on board the craft. And one of the things that came out for me, I never saw like hybrids or any of that sort of thing. But the one thing I understood about the reason I was being taken is because they wanted to know how my environment affected me. What was it like? How do the soaps affect you that you're putting on your skin? How does the food affect you that you're eating? How does, everything that I was in contact with in my environment, how did that affect the body? That was their main concern with me. I never participated in any other stuff as far as I know. There was a couple other things like manipulating shapes, like blocks and levitating them and stuff like that, but I wasn't necessarily participating in any of the other things that I've heard, other abductees participate in. But she took me all the way back to my first incident that I could recall at the age that I was. And this happened in Eastern Washington, in a place called Winthrop, Washington, where my grandparents had a house. And up on the second floor is where I would sleep. And one night I woke up, and there was what I thought in my mind's eye at the time was a ghost, because I thought I saw a ghost in my grandparents' house, and I always wanted to know what that was. And it was actually a gray that had come to collect me. And there was another gray that was on the deck. I could see him on the deck there looking at me while this other gray collected me. And we passed right through the wall again and out to the craft. I could see the craft outside. We passed through the wall and went right to the craft. And the same sort of contraption from the ceiling, again, when I was on the table, came down, and it looked like a vacuum cleaner hose, basically corrugated type of vacuum cleaner hose.
Mm-hmm.
And they took a sample of feces, basically. And I'm like, well, what I remember saying to them during the regression was, if you wanted to know what I had for dinner, I could have told you. You didn't have to do this. And they said, no, it's for this purpose. It's we needed to sample for these purposes to figure out, what you've been in contact and all of that. So in contact with, because I guess everything that you put on your skin, or, even like dryer sheets or anything, that'll actually get excreted out your bowel in some fashion. So that was the purpose of that whole thing.
Do you know how many times that you've been taken by them?
I don't know how many times total.
Okay.
I don't know how many times total, but at least with Dr. Janet Coley, I revisited probably 8 times where I had solid memory of something happening to me, and I never knew what it was. I just thought it was just odd things, like, at camp, we were out in the grassy field in this, like on Orcas Island is where it was. And I remember seeing like some lights in the sky or whatever. And then I just felt so tired that, I just went right to sleep, and everybody else kind of just went to sleep too. And then, so it didn't make any sense to me, especially after all of this stuff had happened, I'm like, well, I want to know about this time, and I want to know about this time. What's this mean? And like, I'd start having the flashbacks, like I say, when I was at work the next day, of different things, different situations popping up. And I'm like, well, maybe this is, connected. And how could this be connected? And like I said in the beginning, it's like starting to put puzzle pieces together to make a puzzle. You know what I mean? But I still, to this day, I still don't have all the pieces. It doesn't feel like I do. But at least I have this basis to work from. And that's what has drawn me to this day, to go out and actually look for things, and video things in the sky, and capture things on camera. Now it's because of I still want answers.
Mm-hmm.
I need answers. I feel like there's a purpose for all of this, which I have a good idea for, but why? Why do they need to know this stuff? I mean, I get the feeling that it's kind of like, well, when we research animals, when we look at, pigs or goats or any other animal that we look at and, dissect and figure out how they work,
That's kind of what I was getting ready to say, is it's similar to what we do to animals.
Yeah, exactly. So they're doing that to us. What's affecting us in our environment? They're interested in that sort of information, I guess. But I guess they're just like scientists. They must be. So I'll tell you this too. After I had finished up with Dr. Janet Coley, I think it was a total of like 12 or 13 sessions with her. I wanted during that time, I wanted physical contact. I said, you know what? If you're going to come get me, I want to be awake when you do. And I just kept thinking that and replaying that in my mind all the time. If you're going to come get me, I want to be awake when you do it. You know what I mean? And so there was one night I could tell. I get the heebie-jeebies when I know they're coming. It makes me kind of queasy and nervous, and I start pacing, and my hands will shake and I'll start to sweat. I know they're coming for me. Things don't feel right. It almost feels like a different vibration. They put off a different vibration than we do, and it feels very off-putting. So I kind of know if they're coming for me now. But this one night, after saying this for months, I want to be awake when you come and get me, I went to sleep and I felt them. I felt them there. And I turned over and I opened my eyes, and there was one looking right at me, about 4 inches away from my face. And I looked right into its eyes, I should say. And it was like, oh no, we can't let you be awake. We can't. For whatever reason, when they come get you, they have to paralyze you, or it's part of their protocol or whatever it is. I don't know. But that's why they always come in threes too. They have some sort of a protocol in place. But they said, no, we can't allow you to be awake. So automatically, while looking into its eyes, I started numbing and not being able to move from my feet all the way up my legs and my torso and my arms. And then eventually I blacked out. And that happened probably in the span of about 2 seconds. So it was rather quick. And then I was taken. And that was pretty unnerving. But that is the only time that I have seen them while being fully awake, other than being like regressed back to when the stuff happened.
Do you remember when it actually did start, like how old you were?
I would say that one incident at my grandparents' house, I was probably 5.
So it started at a very young age.
Yeah.
Have you had any recent, by recent, I mean within the last few years, that you know of?
I've had some very odd incidences. And what I mean is I'll wake up in the morning and I feel like I'm disconnected from my body. Like I'm I'm in my body, like I can see through my own eyes, but I just feel like very disconnected from it. Like I'm just going through the motions. And then I also will have dreams where like I'm falling and I'll wake up as soon as I hit the bed.
Does it
So
ever feel
those-
like you're levitating?
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
I'll wake up as soon as I hit the bed.
Yeah.
So those sorts of things are ongoing. You know, and I want I want answers to questions that I have, you know. You guys are continuing, you know, you're continuing to be in my life. What are you, you know, how far is this going? And where are we going to? What is, you know, and it's just random stuff that pops up in my head, like, you know, where do you come from? And all of this other stuff. And during a session, I did ask that question through Dr. Janet Coley. I was like, okay, so where do you guys come from? And they gave me an answer. And the answer that they gave me was, they gave me a picture of a spiral of planets. And it started like at the closest planet to me and went like a spiral back into the distance. And what I gathered from that information was that this spiral of planets is like they've grabbed DNA from these different worlds to make themselves, is how it seemed to me.
There was a few things that you mentioned. It doesn't really relate to that, but there's a few things that you'd mentioned that I was going to bring up.
Yeah.
When you were being taken out, the first time you mentioned like you could actually see yourself, almost like your consciousness wasn't in your body at that point.
Yeah, during the
dream session.
Yes, when I first realized that I was being taken. That is correct.
And then the traveling through the wall, that is a very common thing that I've heard from other people, is their bodies just, it's not like they dematerialize, but they just go right through solid objects. And I remember talking to someone and they said they could see the plaster of the wall, then they were on the inside of it, they could see the slats of the wood, and then they were on the outside of it. Like it's like their whole body just like goes right through it without.
Yeah. I don't remember that, but it felt like you were going through something tactile, but it didn't feel, or I wasn't able to really see the inside of the wall.
It's just very strange to me that the similarities between what other people have talked about, like it's a very common trend when you hear about people that are abducted, they all have the floating. And then they're going either through a wall, through a window, down the stairs, like, but their body itself is levitating. And then when you have those dreams where you're levitating and then you just kind of plop back down into the bed, it's like, was something really going on again? Was I actually levitating?
Exactly. Was I just being brought back?
Right.
Or my thoughts? Yeah. Yeah. No kidding. And then the other major thing with this abduction stuff is they don't talk, like they don't communicate with words with me. It's like they use a telepathy that is able to convey the information much better than any words could ever communicate. They give you pictures and they give you sensations. So it's almost like they're activating your five senses in a way when they converse with you. So it's a much faster way and a much greater understanding of things when they do converse with you.
I've always heard that it's almost like a telepathic way of talking. Like you can almost hear their thoughts, or they're in your head, is what other people have described to me.
Yeah, it's not so. It's like it's a whole different experience. It's almost like they somehow activate your five senses to merge with theirs or something like that. So it's almost like in their minds, you can almost feel what they're talking about. You can definitely see what they're talking about, but it's a whole bunch of sensations that are going on at one time. I mean, it's almost like they're activating their sense of smell with your sense of smell, but it's not the same. It's different. And it's just a totally different way of communication. I wish we could all communicate like that, because if we could, we would be able to tell when someone is lying, for sure.
Sometimes I wonder if we don't have blockage implemented into us, so we don't have all access to that sort of power with our mind. That's a different rabbit hole to go down into, but I always I just feel like for some reason or not, I don't think we're all very in tune with the world around us.
Well, we've been dumbed down for so many years. I mean, they're putting fluoride and all kinds of stuff in the water. I mean, what is that doing to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that's just the tip of the iceberg.
I think there's all sorts of things that's been going on for years and years that have made us to the way we are today. But that's not the point of this conversation. That's for another time.
Yeah, well, it might be the point of their conversation as far as, what is happening to us. What are we ingesting? What are we taking in that's affecting our bodies? I'm sure that that's part of their research.
I've been looking into a few things here and there, and one of the more, I don't know the typical term to use for it, but one of the more common things that I've been coming across is people believing that the abductions themselves are actually not an ET that is doing it. They actually think it's us, as in humans, but our brains are being programmed to believe it was ETs, but it's actually humans doing all this on people, which I honestly wouldn't be surprised to an extent, but at the same time, I don't understand the purpose.
And do they have the ability to take the human soul out of the body and have it sit there and watch while they do stuff on that body? I don't think they do, but what do I know?
And that's the other part that's a very common thing, is when you mention the soul, they don't think these aliens are aliens. They write them off as demons.
Yeah.
So I honestly don't know. Like, I want to, as bad as it sounds, I want to believe that there's life in space coming down here and messing around with us. But at the same time, it's like, I think all these examples are somewhat plausible.
Yeah.
So I don't really lean one direction, I guess.
That's what drove me so hard to find evidence that they're here, is my grandparents, my father and my grandfather were huge into photography. So I took what I learned from them, and then I went to the woods. I went out to the mountains out here in Washington State and started filming crazy things in the sky. Things that definitely are not airplanes.
Has anyone in your family ever talked about any sort of experiences like that?
I didn't want to get into there is another, yes.
Okay. So we don't have to talk about it if you don't want to.
Yeah.
I was just curious. You happen to know the blood type that you are?
AB.
Okay. I know I think it's they call it RH negative or something like that. That's the one that a lot of people that talk about being abducted usually have. And it's one of the more rare blood types. But I also think it's one of the ones that can be universal.
Right.
I couldn't even tell you what my blood type is, so probably why I haven't been abducted.
Well, you don't know.
I do have some really weird dreams sometimes, so you never know, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea until I was like 38 that this was going on.
To be 100% honest, I don't know if I'd ever want to know. So I don't know what it would actually do if I found out. Like, I don't know if it would drive me even more crazier than what I feel like I am these days.
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't want that to happen to my worst enemy. Really, I just, you have to rebuild your whole life and your whole belief system from what you learn, from from what you now know to be your reality compared to what it was before. And doing that in the span of a couple months or a month is a hard thing to do. I thought about suicide. That came to mind a couple of times because of this. And thank God, working with Dr. Janet Coley, she kept me away from doing that.
A lot of people don't understand the impact that certain aspects have to people, especially when they have something that they go through that's a traumatic experience.
Yeah.
I've tried to say that to a lot of people, like not even just abductions, but people that have encounters with things that they can't explain. It leaves some sort of an impact on these people. And it's something that not everyone can deal with. So
it's hard to deal with it. Yes. You need a professional.
And people don't want to talk about it, which I completely understand, because you have the stigma and the ridicule that usually comes along with saying stuff like this. So a lot of the time people have to keep it to themselves, and that's not a very good way of going about it either.
No, it's not. It's hard because it just eats away at you. And turning to your friends and family, that's hard to do too. I've had to do it over the years, but the only way that I was able to do it was going through therapy and then, coming to the realization that, this stuff happened and there's nothing I can do about it. And now I need to tell other people why I'm spending the nights, looking at Mount Rainier or Mount Adams or Mount Baker. Why am I going out there with camera equipment? It's because something happened to me and now I want to prove it to the world that this stuff is real.
Mm-hmm. What is some of the things you've actually been able to catch on film or anything that you've been able to capture for evidence-wise?
Well, I got a full-fledged craft in the daylight right in front of Mount Baker. That was pretty cool. I didn't even know it was there. I just took 3 pictures of the mountain consecutively, and the center picture had the UFO in it. Sometimes when this started with me in the beginning and I started going out there and filming, I would get the feeling that they were around and I would turn on my cameras and there, lo and behold, there would be stuff that I captured. Later, as the years went on, I just let my cameras roll from the time I got there till I left. And then I would review the footage and find things in the footage. So I've seen plenty of objects go down into Mount Adams and Mount Baker, like go down into the mountain, and plenty of things coming out. And usually these consist of some kind of an orb that is like a plasma ball that looks kind of like a plasma ball, very large in a lot of cases. And accompanied with other plasma balls as well, which is crazy. I remember one night where I got myself a new night vision camera and I said, I got to go check this thing out. I just got it in the mail, and I went out in the backyard, pointed it at the sky, and I got two came by. So it's like they know when I put the equipment out. And I've been doing this long enough now. I know what satellites are. I track them actively now, and I obviously track the air traffic as well when I'm out there doing this. So it's quite an amazing setup that I have right now in the back of my vehicle that I pull out. And I'm able to track a lot of different things in the sky. So I know when I'm looking at something that is different, that is not supposed to be there.
I know we said we'd talk about the UFO stuff, but I did want to ask a question relating to the possible Sasquatch activity. Do you think that is related with the UFO?
once you open this door, a lot of things happened. And the thing that I noticed first was paranormal type of activity in my house.
Mm-hmm.
Things being turned on and turned off by themselves. I heard a noise upstairs when I lived in a 2-story house there in Normandy Park over the water. I heard a bunch of commotion upstairs in the kitchen. So I run up the stairs and all the cupboard drawers are open and all the doors are open. Everything was wide open. Drawers were pulled out all the way. And it was just like, what the heck is going on? So it seems once you open this door, things start to happen to you. I woke up in the morning, first thing in the morning, getting ready for work, going to the living room, and I see this blue orb above the couch. And that thing just shoots right up through the ceiling once it realizes I can see it. So Sasquatch stuff, yeah. I was in search and rescue when I moved to Everett, Washington. And that's kind of when I started getting into the Sasquatch side of things. I had things pacing me, off the trail. I'd be walking and you could hear it crunching in the brush. And when I stopped, it would stop. And that happened out of Skycomish, Washington, Skycomish, off of the Foss River. So that has been an area for me for a long time where I've always had sort of Sasquatch type stuff happening. One time there on the railroad grade, I had these big rocks thrown down and smacking into trees around me. They weren't trying to hit me, obviously, but they wanted me out of there so they could come down and go into the pond. And I think they were trying to get food or whatever, and they just didn't want me in the area, so they were throwing big rocks. But it seems like once you open the door, all of this other activity starts to happen.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of why I asked, because it usually, and I will 100% admit to this, I used to be very skeptical about people that had multiple experiences with different aspects, but the more you've talked to it, and the more I've even experienced myself, I honestly think it's all connected. Because the paranormal aspect to it, the UFO, the cryptid, the more you talk to people, the more I find out that they've had similar experiences. It's like it's all somehow intertwined. I can't explain how. That's just how it is. It just, someone's usually lived in a haunted house, but they've also seen a UFO or they've had some sort of alien activity, but there's a good chance they've also seen something weird in the woods. So
it's almost like some people seem to have one foot in another reality that bleeds over for them
in
some way.
Yeah, it's almost as if certain people are more in tune with the weird side of things that we can't really explain. And I don't know if it's the individual person or if it's because they've had an experience. And once you've had that experience, it opens you up more towards more experiences.
And I think that's part of our nature too. And we change our own reality. Once something like this happens, you want to, if you've got questions and want to know more, you're almost inviting that stuff in, right? You're almost asking for it.
That's what I've always been told and been warned. Like once you start looking into things, sometimes things start looking back and you start having more interaction with things.
Yeah.
So,
the way I would explain it.
Is there anything else you would like to discuss?
Well, the other major incident that I had in June here in Washington at Mount Adams with the Sasquatch stuff, I wouldn't feel comfortable talking about that. I'm okay talking with you about that. The thing is I want the person that was with me to talk as well, because it's better if it comes from two people, because we both experienced it. And, this happened over a period of 3 days. this experience, and even when we moved campgrounds after the first night's incidents, we had other things happen, and including missing time. So, yeah, that
If they would ever want to come on here, we can have you come back on sometime. We can talk about it.
yeah, my co-host Jackie Harmon. Yep,
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah, we'll get something set up. But,
Yeah.
Well, Lee, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I am glad that you were able to get on here tonight and talk with me.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the invitation for sure.
Would you like to let the audience know where they can check out some of the shows that you do and some of your information for like when you're out investigating?
Sure, absolutely. I have a podcast of my own, Element 115 on Spaced Out Radio, and you can find that on YouTube. Spacedoutradio.com as well is our website. And, my show is every Friday night at from 8 o'clock to 9 on Spaced Out Radio YouTube. You can find me on Twitch. You can find me just about anywhere, podcasts are found. And I do the similar thing you do is, I get guests and we talk about their experiences and go from there. It's a good time.
Mm-hmm. So I don't ask a whole lot of questions. I try not to do a whole lot of talking because I try and always make it about the guests. So
yeah, exactly. And their experiences, because you're just, we're just here telling a story, and that's what the audience wants to hear is the story. So
for what it's worth, I try not to say story anymore because someone attacked me over that.
Oh.
I say experiences now because apparently
yes, the experience. We'll go with that. That's fine.
That's like, because usually if you say story, people get mad at you. And I've found out because it's like you're discrediting people. I was like, no, I'm not. It's what it is. Like people are telling their story of what happened to them. Like, no, it's not in a story. I was like, okay. Can't please everybody.
It's fiction or nonfiction, right? Yeah.
Right. All righty. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. If you'd like to be a guest on Tinfoil Tales, remember to send an email to tinfoiltalespodcast@gmail.com or go to tinfoiltales.com and go to the contact section. Make sure to follow me around on all the social medias. And just remember, truth comes at a cost. Are you willing to pay the price?
I heard a story late last night about something lurking along the wood line. Huge footprints, strange lights in the sky. They claim it's nothing, but I know they lie. It's easier to laugh in my face, but something about this makes me say, what if it's real? What if they knew? What if the answers are coming from you? Spinning stories, wasting my time, hearing voices, is it all in their minds? They can call me crazy, but I just want some proof. What if it's true? What if it's real? What if it's true? What if the world's not what we knew? Tinfoil Tales, pulling me in, a story that starts where the logic ends. What if it's real? What if it's true? The answers are waiting, they're waiting for you. They see a dog man walking, or maybe a mothman flies above the buried giants, hidden beneath the lies. They say it's just stories, it's all make-believe. Fairy tales for the things we can't perceive. They want to keep us blinded, they want to break our will. But I'm not buying it, I'm not swallowing another pill. Force-fed poison, the lies we're made to believe. What if the truth could set us free? Alien signals traveling through time, secret space programs erasing their minds. They call them crazy, but I just need some proof. What if it's true? What if it's real? What if it's true? What if the world's not what we knew? Tinfoil Tales, pulling me in, a story that starts where the light demons, ghosts, the Nephilim too. What if it's me? Or what if it's real? What if it's real? What if it's true? What if the world's not what we knew? Tinfoil tales pulling me in, a story that starts where the logic ends. What if it's real? What if it's true? The answers are waiting, they're waiting for you. It's all in our heads, it's all in our minds. These voices can't be silenced, the truth must rise. Tinfoil tales, it's pulling me through. What if it's real? What if it's true?